All right. Welcome back to All Cars Reacts, y'all. If you're new here, my name is John. Welcome aboard, and today it is time to do a new reaction video to an old Motorweek retro review. And this week I have chosen the 2005 Acura RL because, well, I was driving down the road just a little while ago and there was an Acura in front of me, and I found myself thinking about why I don't like Acuras that much when I like Hondas a lot. And I keep thinking about the RL because it's just different enough. It's just out of step with the other luxury brands that I really dig it. So I thought it'd be fun to go back and take a quick look at what Motorweek said about it. So as always, it's just you and me talking. Make yourself comfortable. Grab your beverage of choice in your Saturn cup. We've got some coffee this morning. And let's get into it. See what Motorweek said about it 20 years ago, if you can believe it.
Acura has made a strong sales comeback in recent years with the MDX Sport Ute and TL and TSX luxury sports sedans, all succeeded by offering buyers something different. But Acura's flagship four-door, the RL, still drives in the shadow of big luxury sedans from Lexus, Infiniti, and even the domestics. But for 2005, that may change with an all-new RL. It dares to be different at all four corners.
And I'm going to say I need to do the previous generation RL because I always thought it was extremely good looking. That car spoke to me. It looked upscaled, but it looked squared off, and it looked tailored. Was it truly a competitor to Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Lexus? But did it speak to me? Then yeah, they nailed it. But that's a conversation for another day, right? Let's see this one.
As a luxury brand, Acura has always been something of an industry maverick. When the market zigs, they zag, or turn, as is the case for the all-new 2005 Acura RL. Rather than come up with some innovative comfort feature, they already have plenty of those, or even the long-rumored V8. This time, they're banking on superior handling and traction to give them an edge over rivals like Lexus and Infiniti.
Okay, I have never noticed before how much that car in certain angles looks like a Chevy Volt. I like, wow. And there was one shot down the flank where the rear of it looked, where the trunk lid is, a little bit like one of the old Chrysler Cloud cars, like a Cirrus, right? Or a Stratus. Overall, I think it's a really, really good looking car. This car speaks to me, not like the previous RL where it was all squared off and tailored. This one speaks to me in a little bit more futuristic, swoopy way. I like it. Let's see what they say here about the technology.
Every RL comes standard with a new all-wheel drive system that is modestly called Super Handling All-Wheel Drive, or SHAWD. In a typical all-wheel drive car, when cornering under power, torque is directed to the inside rear wheel. This promotes understeer. Thus, it's nearly impossible for an all-wheel drive car to handle as well as a two-wheel drive car. Acura's SHAWD uses an elaborate rear differential with twin clutch packs to direct extra torque to the outside rear wheel. The overdriving of the outside rear wheel produces a yaw moment that pivots the car into the corner, thus reducing understeer. SHAWD takes its cues not just from wheel slippage, but from the RL standard stability system. On wet and sloppy roads, the SHAWD works much like other all-wheel drive systems with traction control. The nominal 70-30 front-to-rear torque split can be reversed, with any one of the rear tires capable of getting all of the available power. But it is dry road handling that makes the all-wheel drive RL so unique and enjoyable. Without being reckless, we just couldn't force the RL out of its smoother cornering lines. The words safe, secure, and solid played over and over again around every bend. It also helps if you have very responsive...
Wow, they just went on about that for, what, a minute and a half. So, I appreciate the engineering behind super handling all-wheel drive, and I appreciate that description of what it does, how it differs, say, from an Audi system or a Subaru system, why those tend to not handle as well, and why this is using torque vectoring to push you into the corner and reduce that understeer. I appreciate the technology behind it all. But my overwhelming opinion of it has always been that for as much as they want to play up the strengths of it, right? It is because they have a sideways mounted engine on a front wheel drive car. That Acura is not investing in the platform, the engine, and making it a true competitor to what the Europeans are doing. And so they did the exact same thing that Ford did with Jaguar when they took the Mondeo and gave it all-wheel drive, because it was hiding the fact it was a front-wheel drive car. So ACwJ might be the best thing since sliced bread, but I still think they do it to hide its more pedestrian underpinnings.
Responsive, speed-sensitive steering, big all-wheel disc ABS brakes, and 300 horsepower. While no V8, the RL's new 3.5-liter single-cam V6, now with variable valve timing, also rates 260 pound-feet of torque. It's the most powerful engine yet from Acura. The automatic transmission jumps from 4 to 5 gears and adds manual mode paddle-style shifters a la NSX. When it's all put to proper pavement, 0 to 60 can be dispatched in 6.5 seconds. That's comparable to the V8-powered Lexus LS430 and Infiniti Q45. But hot-dogging it down a strip of asphalt is one thing. What about the 99.9% of the time the RL will play more sedate luxury purveyor? Is the new car a real player in that contest? Well, it certainly is by appearances. While still properly conservative in styling, the former RL's squared-off dimensions have been carefully smoothed with a lower hood line, flush glass, and shorter rear deck. While a few inches were shaved off length and wheelbase, it gains in width and height, and tire size grows from 16 to 17 inches with inflation pressure monitoring. Not only are xenon high-intensity headlights standard, but so too is Acura's first active front lighting system. As the car turns, AFS swivels the beams into the corner. Inside, the new RL also put...
Before they get to the interior, let's talk about that styling a little bit. So I was a big fan of the Chrysler Cirrus and the Dodge Stratus back in the day. They're some of my favorite cars from the 90s. And this looks a lot like those to my eyes. I think the Chrysler products are a little more rounded. I think this is handsome. I struggle with this car because it's another one of those, if I take it in a bubble by itself, I think this is a good looking car. I like the front. They didn't go crazy with shapes on the headlights. They didn't go crazy with the grille. It's a little too swoopy a little too wedgy, you know. And at the back, the triangular tail lights, Mercedes was doing that 10, 15, 20 years before. I think it could have just been a little more substantial styling wise in the rear, but everything else about it, I do think this is a great looking car. But this car doesn't exist in a bubble. And so when they say, its performance is comparable to the Lexus LS or whatever, yeah, but it's sideways engine, front wheel drive, and I want to say it's quite a bit smaller. It might be the biggest Acura, but I want to say it's quite a bit smaller than those other ones. So let's see what they say about the interior here.
It's a more modern spin on elegance and unquestioned luxury and safety. Side and curtain airbags are standard. Real maple trim sweeps past 3 huge gauge pods to a wide center stack that houses a large interface dial that provides joystick control of dual-zone climate, 10-speaker Bose stereo, communications, and navigation. The standard nav system sits dash top with a large 8-inch screen that is also voice-activated. The power adjusting seats are wide, very supportive with heat standard. Despite a shorter overall length, front and rear legroom are up. And while the new RL is sleek, rear headroom increased as well. While the rear seat is fixed, there is a small pass-through to the wide trunk, which measures an ample 13.1 cubic feet. Prices for the new RL...
Before they go to prices, I don't have a big problem with this interior. The materials look fantastic. Well, I don't have problems with this interior except for one gigantic caveat. So they shortened the car, they shortened the wheelbase, they've got good rear seat room. The center area there, the center stack, it echoes of some Infiniti in here for me, but that stupid infotainment. And this is part of the problem of Acura is their interiors. I think the materials are all fine, but they want to be, and in fact, I think the CEO of Honda said this at one time back in the day. They want to be a BMW and a Mercedes, or excuse me, an Audi. They want to marry high tech and high performance. And they fell down the tech rabbit hole here of, instead of just offering an excellent interior and focusing on ergonomics, which is what Honda is very, very good at, they put in this stupid joystick to move things around. They're just trying to pose and say, look how high tech we are. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. Now, a generation later or 2 generations later, infotainment is standard. It's easier to use. I totally get it. This was an interim step, but I just don't think it works. But they probably had to do it just to keep up with the Joneses. Other than that, the interior looks fine. It looks like nice Honda. I'm not sure it screams overwhelming luxury to me. I've said this over and over again about many, many different cars, but you look at, a Jaguar, you look at a Mercedes, and then you look at this and you're like, it's fine, but it doesn't wow you when you look at it. It just looks like a nice Honda. A really nice Honda, but a nice Honda.
Have not been released, but we don't expect them to vary much from the $46,000 sticker of the current car. And that does buy you a lot more luxury car, albeit one where its best advantages are things you experience rather than see. Still, adding standard all-wheel drive and high-tech handling to a flagship luxury sedan does put the 2005 Acura RL ahead of its rivals in areas important to hardcore drivers, and shows that Acura's agile thinking can never be counted out.
Okay, so what do I think of this car? I think it's okay. And I wish they gave a little more information about, for 20 years ago, where a Mercedes, a BMW, an Audi, whatever, where those clocked in at in terms of price and in terms of size. I really would have liked more comparison, because my opinion is this thing's a little bigger, but it's certainly not challenging, an S-Class or a 7 Series. So this is the biggest Acura is really kind of challenging a 5 Series, maybe an E-Class, something along those lines. And these cars frustrate me, and Acura frustrates me because I am a Honda fan. And somewhere after this generation, they started to do these hideous interiors. I hate Acura interiors. And then they went through a period with that chrome beak, which I despise. And so you've got one of my favorite brands, and I just would not consider one of their luxury cars. And for, decades now, because of their decisions, I don't know who they're aiming for. Is it the data scientist in San Francisco, or is it the youth market? I don't know what they're going for. But even my wife, we were looking at an Acura. She's like, I hate the interior. And it's that stupid center stack. Why they can't build just a nice upscale interior, kind of like this. They moved away from it to be more of a technocrat. And then this car isn't as big as its competitors. It's not as powerful. It doesn't have a longitudinal engine. It's front-wheel drive. They add in this super handling all-wheel drive, which has benefits, but to me is just hiding its front-wheel drive underpinnings. And it's not really a competitor against almost anything else out there. It's not an LS competitor, which is a V8 engine and rear-wheel drive, and it's not really an Lexus ES competitor, which is unashamedly a front-wheel drive car based on the same platform as the Camry. It's just a really, really nice one. And I find Lexus's approach just more honest, all right? And the ES it's right up there as one of my favorite cars. The RL represents what's wrong with Honda and their approach to Acura. They were successful in the 80s by doing their own thing and offering us a little more luxury from Japanese brands, and they exploded because of it. But then everybody else moved higher and higher into luxury, more directly competing with the Germans. Infiniti isn't a great example, but a couple of their vehicles are extremely nice. Lexus is a really good example, but they've stopped going totally toe-to-toe with the Germans and kind of carved out their own little niche here, and Acura's still down here. That's my opinion of it. They want to be sporty and high-tech, but dang, they don't have any presence. And this car doesn't. That kind of wedgy shape, it doesn't have a presence. It doesn't give off a gravitas. It doesn't cut any new outline in styling. And, you know, the simple fact is you put an Acura today, and I like what they're doing with their styling now, with the new big grille, I like that. And you put it next to a Genesis, and it's clear who is taking luxury more seriously when you look at the exterior styling and when you look at the interiors. But this RL specifically, I'll finish with this, I've always kind of wanted one because it was the top of the line Acura. It was a Honda. It was powerful. It did handle well. It was comfortable. There's nothing wrong with this as a car. So as a used Acura, the RL is pretty awesome. And if you don't want to be the person buying the next A4 or A6 from Audi or another BMW on the road, go find a used RL. I've looked used multiple times, probably over the last 10 or so years. And I kind of would like to have one just to walk a little different than everybody else out there buying the same stuff. And maybe that's what they were hoping for when they came out with it, is that there was enough free thinkers who wanted to break free of the German brands, and they just never did. Thanks so much for being here. This is a great trip down memory lane, y'all. I hope you all have a great one. Thanks.